Hey everyone. So today we have a kind of a 2-for-1. I've got, if you've been around a little bit, you'll know that this is the power comparison apparatus. But one thing that is a new addition to the power comparison apparatus is a new sensor, which I don't have hooked up right now. I'm gonna go old school on this. I do have some code written in an Arduino with an LCD, but like it's not better, and I don't have a case for it yet, so we're gonna go old school. I've got it hooked up here. It's actually already warmed up. I warmed it up with this tractor, and the tractor's obviously warm as well. Now, I just got this tractor back, took it to John Deere for the e-hydro calibration. It's supposed to cost $190. That's what he told me before I left. When I got it back, it was $480, and it took only a month to do this simple calibration. So I'll tell that story later. But we've got this guy that we're gonna do the power comparison apparatus on because we need to baseline it. And we've got this guy that we're also gonna do the power comparison apparatus on because my new friend has graciously let me keep it for a while. I am going to do the installs for him, so that is his benefit, but I think I'm still getting the better part of the deal. Look at this thing, it's duals. I took the backhoe off, and I already took the shield off because I didn't want it to get bent up. This thing is like brand new. So, but I've already got my extension on here, and he even, I mean, I don't think the PTO has been used, that's not unusual for people who have backhoes. A lot of times they've never even had the backhoe off, but it's in really clean shape. So that's good. We'll do the power comparison on this. Now, let me also spend just a minute talking about my last power comparison video, and if I remember, I will link it up somewhere, but if I don't link it, it is the 2038 baseline. Now, why am I baselining the 2038? Well, I have some goodies in the works. I don't know if they'll ever come to fruition, but I needed to get a baseline for that tractor. And also just for comparison's sake, right? One of the things that's important when I'm doing this power comparison, this is the reason I call it, if you don't know, the reason I call it a power comparison apparatus is because it's not intended to measure horsepower, although it can. What it's really intended to do is compare power from the one tractor, we make modifications, compare it to itself, how much increase do we get? Now that said, all the math we're using and all the instrumentation and the formulas does translate to actual horsepower, and so far it's been really close on pretty much everything that we've done. Now, would I bet my life on it being the 2038 as an example had 25 horsepower at the PTO? That is not what John Deere says, and that is not what I would expect from a tractor like that. But that tractor, and we'll see what this one comes out as, says it's 17 horsepower at the PTO, roughly 17 to 18. And not this tractor, but one just like it, exactly what they said. This tractor, 14-ish at the PTO, right on. This tractor, a little bit different, supposed to be 17, but it ended up being 14. But this engine is more the size of that engine. So I don't know, maybe that's a situation where they're kind of cooking the books a little bit. I'm not saying they are, I don't know. Okay, let me stop here because I should probably explain why I'm using strong language like cooking the books. Then maybe that's a little too strong, but whenever I got the initial result, and by the way, I'm saying 14 here because I kind of round when I'm talking about these things, but it was actually 15 and a half for the Kubota, so we're between 2 and 2.5 horsepower off of what the specifications say. But when I got the result, I went and checked the data just to make sure I wasn't looking at something incorrectly, and it just didn't pass the sniff test.
So let me show you this. This is the specifications for the Kubota as well as the John Deere. Now, the assumption is that we have the exact same drivetrain, but different engines in the front. And in my thought process, I would expect that, that loss should be generally the same. And if you look at the bottom here, 1023 loses 6.6, the 1025 loses 6.7. For all practical purposes, those are the same. That's probably a rounding error, not error, a rounding difference here. Now, if you go to the top with the Kubota, you've got the smallest of the engines losing only 2.9 horsepower. The 2380, which is what we're looking at here, loses 3.9, and the biggest of all the engines loses 5.3. It should be generally the same amount of power loss. And I would say if it's not, then they should put the 2680 engine into the 1880 chassis, and then you'd have a much more powerful machine. But this is why I'm a little bit confused. Now, they both say they're at 3200 RPM, so it's not a situation where they're testing them at different times and different horsepowers at least. So what's happening? I don't really know. What I think, though, is that if I test another BX, I suspect I'm going to be in the 15 to 16 horsepower range. I got faith in the power comparison apparatus, and what that also means is my 3025, I think there's some kind of issue with it because it is not producing the horsepower that it should be producing. So that's my thoughts on it, and now we'll jump back to the regularly scheduled programming.
But what I'm telling you is I got 14 horsepower out of this tractor. What does that mean? Maybe it's not 14 horsepower, but what it does mean is the 1025 at the PTO is going to do the math, 3 horsepower more, so it's probably something in the order of 20 to 25 horsepower more, or 20 to 25% more at the PTO. Individual tractors, can't speak, I don't have lots of samples of this, but I've done multiple 1025s. They've all been 17 to 18, which is what John Deere says. I've only done one of these, so maybe it's wrong. Now here's another tractor that isn't, in my case, correct, in that I'm only getting like 14 out of this tractor. It's supposed to be 25 horsepower, and this particular tractor, I'm only getting 14, maybe 15. I have a neighbor who has the same tractor. His produced 17, between 17 and 18, which is what's advertised. So is it my particular tractor? It seems to be. I have 2 of them, right? Or I have a sample of 2. But what I would still say is it's kind of on the lower side because his, I think, was 17, and I think they do advertise on this one to be 18. This, even though it is a 25 horsepower, this is a 25 horsepower, they're different engines, they're different displacements, and this one's doing it at 2,500 RPMs, that one's doing it at 3,400 RPMs, so not exactly apples to apples, but how they come out from a horsepower point of view works out. Now, do keep in mind that horsepower, I don't want to get into the deep details of it, but horsepower is a function of torque. Really what you always measure is torque. And when you add a time component to it, that's when you get horsepower. If you're just trying to, but the measurement part is how much turning ability it has. And that's why 25 horsepower or 2,500 RPMs, that's more torque, at least at 2,500 RPMs than this one, because that one's being measured at 3,400 RPMs. Again, I can't get into the details, but that is a factor. So the thing I need to correct is, and I almost want to say some of the things that I said in the video for the 2038 are right, but a few things are wrong, but they're wrong because John Deere's website's wrong. So if you're wondering, Google it. This engine is the same engine component-wise as the 2038. It is a 3 TNV 86 CT. So 3 TNV, that's 3 cylinders, tractor, vertical, the N doesn't mean anything, I don't think. And then you've got 86, that's the bore, C, common rail, T, turbo. And then you always have a dash something, something, something. That dash something, something, something is the manufacturer specific number and how they have it tuned, right? And so because John Deere's website is wrong, I could probably look at my 2038, but it's not here. I do know that the something, something, something after the dash is different for this engine than it is for the 2038. So that means to me that it's the exact same engine, but there's tuning or something else that's different. Now, between that, this is a 3039, which is 1 horsepower more than a 2038. The 2038, though, at the PTO, I only got 25 horsepower. According to the literature, I believe it's supposed to be something like 32. And the engine is 36, 37, I think. But the PTO is, I'll put it on the screen. If it's not 32-ish, I'll correct it on the screen. Otherwise, it's 32-ish. This one, I gotta go look, hang on. All right, I went to the John Deere website. This one, eHydro, is actually 29.8. If you have the power reverser, you actually get 32 point something. Well, interestingly enough, the 2038, and this is PTO horsepower, keep in mind, the 2038 shows, and is only a hydrostatic, so it's only one number, shows 30.2 horsepower as the PTO. So this tractor, according to John Deere's website, is less powerful at the PTO than the 2038. Let's see what we find, because one thing that's interesting about this tractor to me, and I don't want to go into the eHydro and how well I think that works, but it seems to work really well as far as how it applies power. This one runs up to about 2,700 RPMs, where the 2038 only runs to 2,500 RPMs. That means, to me, that there should be at least a little more, potentially a little more fuel available. So could it create a little more power? Potentially, we'll see together here. So let me go ahead and get it started, and let's run the quick test, and we'll move on to the 1025. Okay, I'm actually in the cab because this tractor, I do not have anything disabled, and I don't feel the need to as much because you can start this one in gear. I love that. I'm so lazy. I do not want to shift it out of gear to start it. This one starts in any gear, assuming, actually you don't have to be in the seat, but it will not go, obviously, if not. The John Deere 1025R, gotta have it neutral. Kubota lets you start it in gear as long as you're not touching the hydro pedal. All right, so if you're thinking about getting one of these, the way you do this is you turn on the PTO, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hold it forward. See how it says hold? Then it says, now you can exit the seat. That's how you get the PTO to run while you're exiting or you're outside of the vehicle. All right, we've got our PTO running, and we barely have any kind of pressure on it because it's backed off, and we're running, with this particular pump, we're running a little over 6 gallons a minute, so we got to give it the beans here. So notice we're at 560 PTO, where on the other tractors we'd just be at 540. Well, the 2038. The 1025 goes a little higher. So what we're gonna do, remember, is we're gonna pull this down to 15 gallons a minute. I'm gonna pull one more even harder, down to 12. Moaning. 12, 30. All right, so at our standard 15, so this pump does 17, so we're pulling it down to 15. Make sure that the governor's open completely up.
Oh, hold on. Gonna have to stop you right there. This is a 3039R. It has common rail fuel injection, so it is not gonna have a governor. Oh, what was that? Okay. That actually makes sense then. So what you really meant was we're going to pull it down so the engine slows down. The ECU is going to notice that. It's going to add the maximum amount of fuel based on its programming. And then we're going to get the maximum horsepower reading here at the PTO. That makes sense. You may proceed.
We were at 2,800, and at 12, we were at, I think it was 3,200. All right, you should see the numbers on the screen, but I'll tell you because I'm telling myself. We had 15 gallons per minute, 2,800 psi, and we times that by our coefficient, 0.0007, which takes into account that this isn't 100% efficient, and that gives us 29.4. John Deere says 29.8. I'm going to call that good. I could have, the variation, and maybe I was, quarter of a gallon off, or could have put 50 more psi or 50 more psi there. We're right there where we should be. So that's good. That makes me feel better, given I've got this tractor's right on. We'll see what the next 1025R is, but I've already done two or three of those. They're right on. The 1023, right on. This one, I don't know what your problem is. This one, get with the program here. Okay, let me move everything over to the 1025R, and let's see what we get on that one. All right, we've got everything moved over to the 1025R. Now, I think I said this was a 2019, but the pin on it, I'm not going to show you the exact one because I don't know why, but it's 1025R HJJ, and I think the JJ are the ones that we care about. And I think my other one's a JJ, and it's a 18, and I think that's because for some reason they skip I, because it looks, I don't know. Somebody comment below and help me out here. But we've got 1025R, bone stock, 105.9 hours. And actually, this has the okay, it was a guess, but I think this is the way you do it. You start it. Not really a guess, because the other one you had to hold this up. So we start it, right? And then we hold it and then get up. And then let go. Don't move. All right, here we go. All right, so we're at, everything looks good here. Some flow going, 450. Open that baby up. Relieve some pressure here. Okay. Let's give her the beans. 570 roughly. 3350. I think I saw 1600 at least once. Let me do the math here. All right. I saw 1600, saw a little more than 1600, but I kind of take a little bit of an average. 15 gallons per minute, 15 times 1600 times 0.0007, 16.8. John Deere says 17.2. I'm feeling really good about that. So we're 0.4 horsepower off on this one and on that one. So that makes sense to me. Again, we'll use this exact same system, the exact same instrumentation, everything to compare after we make a change to this. We don't have any changes to make to that one just yet. I really just wanted to know how much horsepower it had. So I'm feeling good about the power comparison apparatus after having the 30, 25 come up a little bit short. Now, I can't give you a big update, but very soon I'm going to show you this one with the turbo. I'm going to give you one little thing. This is something that I'm going to have made. We cannot get everything under here pointed in the right direction. Similar to the Kubota, we're going to have to make some parts if it's going to be nice. We could do it, but it would be very ugly. So I think I'm going to wrap it with that. This is really a kind of a 2-for-1 power comparison apparatus. I wanted to get the baseline for this tractor because we are going to start making modifications to it. I wanted to get a baseline for this tractor simply because I was curious, given that it does have the exact same engine as the 2038. We obviously know it's tuned differently, and according to John Deere, it has one more horsepower at the flywheel, but it seems to have about 4 more horsepower at the PTO, and those numbers line up with what John Deere says. So that's making me feel pretty good. The power comparison apparatus, again, not a horsepower measurement device, but I am really happy with it. And like I said, the math, the equations, they work out, and we're seeing in more cases than not, it actually is predicting, or not predicting, it is giving us the same horsepower readings that we're supposed to be getting according to the literature. That's it for this one. Questions, comments, leave them below, and thanks for watching.